Hey everyone, I'm Chanel Pattinson, a chartered financial planner and a host of the Her Future Bright podcast. I interview inspiring women in finance. We talk about their careers, their achievements, and how they are bringing our profession forward. This podcast is sponsored by JP Morgan Asset Management. On this week's episode, we have Mary Mosope Adeyemi. Hey Mary, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you, Chanel?
I am very well, thank you. So for anyone who doesn't know Mary, she is an executive director at Goldman Sachs, founder of Visibility and author of Visible Strength. So to start things off, Mary, could you tell us how your career in finance started?
Of course. First, thank you for having me. It's really exciting. And hello to everyone listening. Hey. How did I start my career in finance? I started probably about 15 years ago during the great financial crisis. It was kind of when I furrowed into my first full-time role. Prior to that, I had held internship roles at different organizations within banking. I'm a graduate of accounting and finance. So I kind of always knew that finance was something that was interesting to me and that I wanted to do more of. But I initially started my career thought thinking that I would be like an accountant. That was what I was really kind of aiming for. I thought I would be an accountant. I thought I'd work for like Big Four and I would do that. And I was really good at it. It was a natural talent for me. And so I kind of was leaning into that. But for whatever reason, I actually could not get internship opportunities in accounting. As much as I tried, I went for interviews. I did everything I could. I was like top of class. I could not get internship opportunity. It didn't matter what I did. I just couldn't get it. And so when, at some point, I think I literally just gave up and I went for a program for this organization called SEO London at university. And SEO London is Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, and they're a charity that supports ethnic minorities to access careers in finance. At the time, it was purely just banking. And then now they've kind of expanded into many other spaces. So I went for this program pretty much to just think about it. I was dejected, not having, being able to get the jobs that I wanted. And then I just went for this program. And then they were there talking about careers in investment banking, which I had never really considered. Even though I was a finance major, I never really considered doing banking. And so I went for this program. It was quite enlightening. I thought, okay, well, since I can't get accounting, let me just do this for the summer and, kind of while away time somewhat. And then I applied, I got through the program, I got placed at Deutsche Bank. Actually, that was my first organization. This is probably back in 2005, I think, maybe 2005, 2006. And then and that was my first sort of entry pathway into finance. It was mind opening because I'd never really thought about finance. The day before my interview with SEO London, I actually Googled like, what does an investment bank do? I didn't know what they did. And I was on the train, like on my way from Lancaster University, where I went to school, to London. I was like, what do they do? And I already had an interview. So it was quite weird and wild. So it's still unclear to me how I got that first job. And to think that was the thing that I felt the most unprepared for is what I got. But the thing that I thought I was going to do like all of my life is what I didn't get. Was kind of wild. So, hey, take from that the lesson you will. But I think the point was, so I started like kind of my entry pathway into banking then. And I saw like the plethora of opportunities within the field of banking and how well aligned my skills were to that type of space and what I would enjoy in that space. And I guess, the rest, they say, sort of history. I did a couple of internships over a few years whilst I was finishing my university and then doing my master's. And then I started full-time in 2008 in Bank of America. This is pre-merger Bank of America. And a couple of years later, we then merged with Merrill Lynch. And that was my first job. And I was there for 10, almost 11 years.
Wow, amazing. I think that's such a good point to make, that like you just, like you said, you might be heading in a direction that you absolutely think is the direction you're heading in, and it just might not be, and you might take a different path. So super, super interesting. So as you said, you spent 10 years at Bank of America. So tell us a bit more about your time there, what you did, what it was like.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was a mixed bag of different things. Effectively, I worked for two companies. In fact, I worked for like a lot of companies, even though I worked for one. In that, I joined Bank of America, which is the sort of UK branch of a large, almost primarily commercial bank in the US that had investment banking activity. Post the crisis, or sort of, I guess, during the crisis, as a consequence of the crisis, we had the big sort of, Lehman Brothers crash, and then the acquisition of Merrill Lynch by Bank of America. It became a completely different company. So even though I didn't actually change firms, I basically got re-employed from Bank of America to Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and that internally felt quite different. And I started my work as like a portfolio manager, effectively helping transaction teams monitor their portfolio of credits. So that was what I did. And so I would spend a lot of time, assessing financial statements, reviewing and, writing like, financial analysis and performance updates for the credits that were in our book. When we became Merrill Lynch, there was a lot going on. And in particular, we inherited like a significant, what we call a distressed credit book. And so I shifted from being like a portfolio manager for pretty much well-performing credits, very stable credits, to being a distressed portfolio manager, which was kind of a big change for me. And then slowly but surely, the department that I was in kind of shifted from being just a portfolio management group to a credit underwriting group, in that we were now actually taking on risk and not just managing risk. And so I kind of moved from a middle office type role into a front office role, effectively dealing with clients directly and being client facing, and working on transactions for us to provide capital to our clients for their strategic or liquidity needs. And so, I guess the lesson there for me is just the fact that what might feel as though you're not really moving, you could very well be transitioning quite significantly, even though you're sitting in the same role, you're going to the same office, you're doing all of that stuff, you're actually changing jobs. And, the expectations of, at each stage of that transition was different. The team was expected to do something different. I was expected to do something different within that context as well. And yeah, so it was quite an interesting one. And so, that kind of took me from, being a portfolio manager to being a distressed portfolio manager to being a credit underwriter, and then covering multiple industries and, sectors. And then eventually I kind of found my sweet spot being a leverage finance credit underwriter. And so I used to work with financial sponsors. So your Blackstone, KKR, Advent, whenever they were doing these sort of big acquisitions in the market, I'll be part of the team that would help them, get the financing effectively. And so, we would do these kind of really interesting deals that we really couldn't talk about in the market, but we knew were going on. And so that was also quite cool. And so, I did that for a good few years, tacked on a few things here and there. And then eventually, I think maybe about a couple of years before I left Bank of America, I thought, okay, let me try something else. And so I moved into regional coverage, primarily focusing on Sub-Saharan Africa, Turkey, Russia, the Middle East, doing things in that region. So that was interesting, very different than what I'd spent my time doing before. But at this point, it was getting sort of 10 years at the firm. I was getting very antsy. I'd had many, many various levels of itches across. I'm just kind of thinking like it was time to do something different. It was time to move or have a different experience. And so, it was a good note to round off my time. I felt like, I really enjoyed the work that I did as a credit risk manager. That hadn't changed, and I'm still a credit risk manager. I really, really enjoy that work. And if it's not broken, why fix it? But it was an interesting opportunity to try different, cover different clients, cover different sectors, different industry, different regions, different products. There's a lot of opportunity to move around. And so every sort of few years, sometimes even months, my job almost changed quite dramatically. So that kind of kept things interesting and kept me learning.
Interesting. That is incredibly interesting. So you then moved into your current role of senior risk manager, executive director at Goldman Sachs. So tell us a bit more about it. And also you mentioned you had like the itch a few times. Why was this like the itch that you actually sort of went with and left and did it?
I felt as though at the time, I think, I don't know, maybe something about the 10 years, maybe just really resonated. It felt like a nice even number to kind of say, okay, you've done 10 years. Let's close this chapter. So I think maybe there was something about the 10 years that felt very ominous, and felt like, okay, this was a good time to leave. It was also a great opportunity in that, for the role, Goldman reached out to me. I didn't actually reach out to them. So Goldman reached out to me. That was interesting. It was a fairly nascent team, and there were a lot of strategic initiatives that I had experience dealing with at Bank of America. I felt I could really add a lot of value to the team. I liked my boss, who I had probably got to know for about 2 years. So I didn't like jump immediately. It was quite a long period of talking and, having conversation. Yeah, so I kind of met him maybe about 18 months before I actually joined the team, maybe 18 months to 2 years before I joined the team. So we had met a couple of times. And each time I had, enjoyed getting to know him, understand the strategy he was, what he was trying to do at the firm. I think I felt I could plug into that. It was a role that kind of offered a lot of opportunity for me, especially in terms of leadership opportunity, and a lot of breadth in terms of, doing things that were different. Goldman as an organization is structured quite differently to Bank of America. I knew that if I was going to have to leave Bank of America, it would have to be for a firm that offered something that was quite different. And I think I found that in Goldman in terms of just, the different types of lines of business that they had, the types of products that they covered, the types of clients that they served. It was quite different to what I'd been exposed to at Bank of America. So I thought, hey, this is enough of the same, but also a lot of difference that I could, immediately add value, but I could also grow quite significantly. So yes, I think there wasn't really this one thing. It was just more like, but I mean, I left Bank of America in a flood of tears. Like I was constant. I remember the week I was leaving, I could cry I could cry at any moment. I was just like, it was one of the most emotional experiences I think of my life. I just, I'd made a lot of friends. I had some really great colleagues. I had learned so much. It was basically like leaving home and getting married. You're happy you're getting married, but you're sad to be leaving home. It was just basically that. And I kind of felt very like, it was super emotional. So I didn't leave Bank of America in a huff or puff. I was, I left because I wanted to grow in a different way, not even in a different direction, but just in a different way. And it just felt like it was time. So yeah. So sometimes it's not always that you have to leave because there's something wrong. Sometimes you just leave because you just want to grow differently. And that's an intentional growth choice. I find that when in my work as a career strategist, I find I'm always talking to women and they're always looking for the thing that's wrong, and why they should leave. I'm like, nothing really has to be wrong. Like sometimes it's the choice to move in a different direction or choice to see something differently. And that's enough of a reason to honor yourself and make the move and not just necessarily wait for something to be broken. I think we're always looking for a bad manager or a bad company or something, something to be dramatically wrong for you to like leave. But it doesn't really have to be. And I think that was kind of my case there was just nothing wrong. I just thought it was time.
Amazing. I think that's a really, really useful bit of advice. Because I know I've definitely experienced it, kind of waiting for a moment where something's gone wrong and, oh, actually, it's time to leave now. But no, I think that's incredibly useful. So thank you. And then in September 2022, your book Visible Strengths was published, which I'm very excited to talk about. So why were you compelled to write the book and who should read it?
Oh, great question. Why was I compelled to write the book? I was compelled to write the book. So about, I guess, for most of my career, I've always sort of straddled, working in my functional role as a credit risk manager, but also having this intense passion for what I always describe as equitable, career development, in that, I feel as though everyone, regardless of your race, your gender, your ability, or your socioeconomic background, should have the opportunity to thrive at work. And what that means is having access to everything that is available, in terms of coaching, in terms of training, in terms of networks, in terms of advice, in terms of whatever it is that is available, should be available to every single person. So I've kind of always done work in that space, developing programs, training development programs, recruitment programs, and the like. And I've tended to do that. I did that all through my time at Bank of America. I do that a lot now at Goldman. And so that work kind of led me to founding my company, Visibility. And so we are a social first organization, and we help to improve the outcomes for women in the marketplace through inspiration, coaching, and community. Through that work, I would engage with a lot of women. I would engage with a lot of women of different ages, stages, races, backgrounds. And I realized that, one thing was a very, very common theme, this idea of coming into the workplace, but being unprepared. I saw it in my time. I had a lived experience of that. And I started my career, and I started my career in pretty tumultuous times. But I think what would have made it a little better was if I really understood how the workplace functioned, in terms of what would it take for me to actually be successful beyond my technical skills, of which I thought I had big technical skills, but really you're a student. Like, how much do you really know? But, we do a lot of stuff at school. You get your first class, your 2-1 or whatever, and you come into the workplace and you just think that's all it's going to take. And I realized very quickly that that's not enough. I went through quite a difficult, what I would say, workplace transition period. It probably took me about 4 years or so to even feel like I was I understood what was going on, and I understood how to add value, and I understood how to, talk about my work and, connect the work that I was doing with my strengths and all of that stuff. It took me a bit of a while to feel like I was in my own rhythm. And that theme hasn't changed. And so in the work that I was doing, I was constantly hitting that wall, people being very, very unclear about, whether or not they were in the right career in the first place. People not really understanding how to even get their first job. People not understanding, okay, now I'm in my first job. Why am I here? How am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? What should I care about? What work should I be doing every single day? I'm not getting promoted. Why am I not getting promoted? I'm getting passed off opportunities. Why is that? People talk about visibility. What is visibility? How should I make visibility work for me? So there were the same questions kept coming up, right? So I started doing these workshops. A couple of years ago, I started doing these workshops. Workshops were always packed, always full. The questions were always the same. And I think somewhere inside of me, I just thought, one day I thought, that I think there's a book here. I've never been someone to write. In fact, I ran away from anything that required a lot of writing. I did a lot of, more mathematical courses when I was in school, and that was intentional. Anything that required a dissertation, I would run away from. Writing is not actually my core strength. And I know that. And so it's really bizarre that I have a book out. It's probably one of the most bizarre things. But I felt as though it was a resource that I felt was missing in the marketplace in terms of, how do you transition effectively into the workplace? How do you get ready for work? How do you make work for you? You might find different bits and pieces in 20 different books, but you probably won't find it in the same place in a way that is digestible and, that leverages storytelling and authenticity and a real lived experience to say, hey, I actually wasn't doing well at work. I didn't think I was doing well at work, but here I am. And, I've made a transition, but I learned some things along the way. And so this is what I want to share with you. So that, it's a kind of long-winded way of answering your question, but it wasn't sort of this big one moment of, okay, I'm just going to pick up the thing and write. It was a lot of experiences that culminated in, okay, I think that there's something here that I think people should know, that I think will be helpful. And so, okay, maybe let's do something. And I joined the writing program. I didn't just go on my own. I joined the writing program. So I kind of had a lot of support and help. Through the writing program, I, got picked up by my publishers. I had a lot of like editorial support. I wrote every full stop and comma and word and everything in the book. But I did have an army of people who were helping me develop my stories and kind of put together the thought in a way that was as easily digestible. So, who should read Visible Strengths? I would say it's really that, the early career professional who doesn't want to go through the trial and error. Too many people are checking out of work because they're testing theories instead of actually having a strategy. And so, I've written Visible Strengths for the determined, ambitious career professional who doesn't want to follow the trial and error approach to building their career. I've written it for the person who wants to, build credibility quickly in the workplace whilst they're remaining authentic to themselves. I've written this book for people who want to grow very diverse and exciting careers that provides for them, grows them and inspires them every single day. So yeah, there's sort of lots of themes there, but those are the people that I have in mind. But I also wrote Visible Strengths for people who are career coaches and counselors, at universities, at organizations, even managers or employers, who are trying to, empower and equip the people that work for them to pick up resources that can help them really thrive in their career, right? So those are kind of a secondary group of people. But yeah, the primary group of people are just, people like me who were trying to, excel at work, but didn't have the tools to do so. Now you have one, so grab it.
Absolutely amazing. And you talk about in the book discovering and activating your strengths at work. So tell us a bit more about the elements of the Visible Strengths philosophy.
Oh, wow. So the Visible Strengths philosophy is, I love it. I don't even remember the day that it came to me, but I always think I think about that day very fondly. I just think, I wonder what I was doing. I actually think I just had surgery and I was lying down and I was trying to piece together my thoughts in the middle of, a lot of stuff. And I was like, how am I going to synthesize this information? This is kind of what it is. And it felt like a real wholly inspired moment. So the Visible Strengths philosophy is simply this, right? That, if you want to find fulfillment and success in your career, you need to do three things. And this applies, at different stages of your career. At the start, when you're coming from academia into the world of work, when you're transitioning between projects, when you're transitioning between teams, departments, roles, companies, different stages and phases, levels of promotion, it actually is all the same. And, if you think about all of the career advice that you've ever received, you'll realize that it falls into one of these three buckets. So if you want to excel, if you want to be fulfilled, have career joy and advancement, you should do three things. You should capitalize on your strengths, you should contribute value, and you should communicate your results. Capitalizing on strengths just simply means leveraging your strengths in everything that you do. This is your most significant area of opportunity. And sadly, there's research that suggests that, less than 50% of people who are at work are actually doing things daily that are really in their strength zone. So lots more people are doing things that are less in their strength zone than those that they are. And that's why we have like this sort of, significant number of people who are showing signs of dissatisfaction at work. How do you go to work every single day not knowing that you have within you the toolkit to be successful? Feels like a really sad place to be, So there's that. And then, the second piece is around contributing value. And, the fact is people keep those who solve problems around. Let me put it that way. So if you're someone who solves problems, you will always be in demand. And so contributing value is the process of understanding, first of all, what is considered valuable to those that you serve and making sure you're delivering those relevant results consistently and innovatively. No one can argue with value. That's the fact. And so, keeping that in mind. And the final piece is communicating results. And it's the piece that I think I love every part of the Visible Strengths philosophy, but this one I think is a big one. And it's probably the one that I've struggled with the most in my career is around communicating results. The fact is that, work doesn't speak, people do. And so if you are doing all this good work, you're adding value, you're running with your strengths, you're doing stuff, but you actually are not actively telling people about the work that you're doing. You're not marketing yourself. You're not serving yourself as the chief marketing officer of product. You are really missing an opportunity. And even some of the biggest brands and the biggest, and I can pretty much start teaching right now because that's how excited I always am about this. The biggest brands, spend, between 16 to 40% of their annual budget on marketing. That's how important it is. So if you're really thinking about yourself as a brand and as a product, just then think about the amount of time that we should also be spending in doing that, and not just time, even resources, making sure that we're crafting our message correctly, making sure that we're actually sharing the story of the work that we have done, why we have done it, how we've done it, and how it's the solution to people's pressing problems. So communicating results is so dear to me. It's the shortest section of the book, but it's short for a reason. It's short because if you have learned to capitalize on your strengths to contribute value, then communicating results is just about marketing. So it's not necessarily the most in-depth. It doesn't need to be all bells and whistles. There are specific strategies you can apply. They're actually pretty simple and pretty like, duh, I should have thought about that. But, it feels as like that because you've done, necessary work to on the other sort of two pillars of the Visible Strengths philosophy. So, yeah. So I guess that you kind of asked me a double question there in like, what are the components of the Visible Strengths philosophy? But then you also asked me about, how do you capitalize on your strengths at work? That I think I'll keep it simple and encourage you to pick up the book to learn a lot more. Capitalizing on your strengths is really about, first of all, discovering your strengths, taking the time to create that awareness for yourself. What do I do well? What do I know? What are my attributes? What excites me? What is my experience? These are all things that form your package of strengths. And so doing that work, whether it's through introspection, asking other people, psychometric assessments, that's like a good sort of pathway of at least starting. And then once you are able to, take the time to discover your strength, the next thing you need to do is really clarify what matters to you. Capitalizing on your strengths is firstly the discovery stage, but it's now applying those strengths in executing the things that matter to you. And, what really matters to you is really that vision of the future that you want to create. When you close your eyes and you think about yourself, where are you seeing yourself? We talk a lot about purpose and all these things. I don't really like lingo like that per se, because I don't think that purpose is, I feel as though purpose is discovered as opposed to like something that's given to you. I feel like it's something that you wade through. It's not you don't just wake up and just say, aha, this is what it is. I feel like you have to almost go through a process of elimination. I was listening to a podcast the other day and it said, what we actually have, we're standing in front of 1,000 doors, but your job is to close 999 of them. As opposed to trying to find the one door that you're supposed to be in front of. Is actually like you're standing in front of so many options. Your job is to shut down 999 and then stick with the one, and define that as kind of who you are and what you want to pursue and how you want to go about it, right? And I found that super profound and a very different way of thinking about exactly what I was talking about in the book is what really matters to you. There's so many options, but what is that thing that really ignites passion in you and ignites like that energy? And it could be, it could be a problem you want to solve in the world. It could be, a certain, value you want to add. It could be a change you want to make. It could be an alternative future you want to create. It could be even just providing for your family, whatever the reason that is, whatever reason it is that you're getting up every single day to do whatever it is that you're doing. You just have to make sure that you're clear about what that is and what is the driving force of that. Effectively, what is your why, and how do you want to go about that? So what are your life rules? And so once you're able to kind of connect the two elements of that, which is the strengths that you've discovered, and then clarifying what matters to you, then capitalizing your strengths is really now about positioning those two things to help you leverage your strengths to achieve those goals, really. So and I talk really extensively about, I think I probably spent about 7 chapters of the book going into sort of the different facets of what that means in terms of capitalizing your strengths. And so I think it was 6 chapters actually. So it's pretty in depth. So if you're someone who is struggling with the idea of strengths discovery, if you're struggling with the idea of, why am I here? What am I doing? Where should I be? What career should I be in? I think, spending time in those chapters will be super helpful for sure. And, I think it would give you sort of the tools to really do that discovery for yourself and equip you, but it will also give you some really energizing stories that you could potentially start, mapping your course around.
Amazing. So many nuggets of absolute gold in there. So you definitely now need to tell the listeners where they can purchase the book.
Oh yeah, it's in the most popular place that books are sold. So it's on Amazon, Amazon.com globally, wherever you shop on Amazon, it's definitely there. We are also stocked on Barnes and Nobles if you're in the US. We are on Roving Heights if you're in Nigeria or somewhere across Africa. We're on Scribd, I think is what it is, which is like a book subscription service. So you can pick it up there as well. But I think Amazon is probably your best place. And then, of course, you can get it on my website. So www.visibility.com/visible strengths book. And we'll keep updating for stockists as and when we get new stockists and stuff. We'll keep on updating on that page for stockists. Because we're in so many conversations with so many bookstores and so many, but we'll get there in the end. It's a progressive move. So yeah. So I'm thankful for where we are already, and I'm looking forward to where we are to getting to new places. But to be fair, I think most people get their books on Amazon. So pick it up on Amazon, and you can get the hard copy and the ebook.
Brilliant. I'll leave a link in the show notes below as well, so everyone can go away and have a look.
It is now time for a message from our sponsor. At JP Morgan Asset Management, we offer clear, actionable market insights that are trusted by investors globally. We use the depth and breadth of our global research capabilities to identify complex and correlated risks and opportunities. Our sustainable investing groups are bringing their expertise to bear to understand the complex nature of climate risk and opportunity, to allow our clients to invest for a more sustainable return and for a more sustainable world. Together with our clients, partner and the companies we invest in, we believe we can drive better outcomes for today and for the future we want to see. Visit am.jpmorgan.com to find out more. Your capital may be at risk.
So the next few questions I like to ask every guest. So the first one is, what do you enjoy doing outside of work?
Well, it depends on what you consider work, right? Like, is work Goldman Sachs or is work visibility? It's kind of like, I think you probably find the same. It depends on, So outside of my work as a credit risk manager / credit investor, I probably enjoy doing visibility stuff. So doing, having these conversations, helping women progress in their career, just thrive. I think I probably spend an awful amount of time, I was just over the weekend just thinking, wow, like I would spend my weekends writing blogs and social media posts and all these things. And I'm like, why. But I definitely enjoy that, or having sort of coaching calls. Like that's a regular feature in my weekends. I spend a lot of time doing that. But if we classify that as work as well, then outside of that, I'll probably say I enjoy spending time with friends. Brunching is a favorite pastime of mine. I love a good trip. I pretty much plan my trips for the year about a year in advance, just because I just need to be looking forward to something. So it's just constant. I'm always like, when am I leaving? As much as I love the UK and this is home, I'm always like, I need to be out of here more often than not. So definitely travel is a big part of my life. So I was pretty sad during the whole pandemic, because it meant I was kind of docked in one place for a very long while. So yeah, it's not ideal, but thankful that we're all kind of that's behind us in some way or another. I also enjoy weightlifting. Oddly enough, I spend a lot of time in the gym doing that, and it's probably my type A version of finding something that I can control / can't control, in the sense that I like seeing the fact that I can lift heavier than I lifted before. So it's a bit of a weird one. So I spend a lot of time doing that. And I haven't done this recently. I haven't spent as much time in it recently, but I love everything K-drama as well. So I watch a lot of Korean dramas. I've gone to South Korea, like with my friends, just because we just love K-drama so much. And so when I have the time, you catch me reading subtitles on a K-drama on Netflix or somewhere else. So yeah, so lots of different things, but it's definitely around, family, food, travel, and some Netflixing, I would say.
Amazing. And what would you say is the most important lesson that you have learned in your career so far?
Oof, it's everything I wrote, Invisible Strengths, basically. Yeah, it's those three things: is build a career around your strengths. That's when you're going to be the happiest. Make sure like every day you're showing up and you're adding value. You are clear about the work that you're doing and how it's connecting to the big picture. Like, we're so task driven, especially as young professionals. You're just like, I need to get this paper done, moving on. I need to get this report done, moving on. I need to get this spreadsheet done, moving on. And we don't actually know where your work is going. You don't know how it's like feeding into the big picture. So, adding value is about connecting the dots between the work that you're doing and the big picture. And that was a big thing that I left out for many, many years. And the moment I had that big mind switch, it changed how I showed up at work every single day. And then the whole visibility piece, right? Like, work doesn't speak, people do. I have to keep reminding myself about that. Every piece of work, when I'm done, I have to say, how am I going to market this? How am I going to, like, literally just think about it as a product? Every piece of work. How am I going to market this? How am I going to make sure people know that I did it? How am I going to make sure that, and not in a braggy, like obnoxious way, but in a sense that when you do valuable work, it is your prerogative to let people know that it exists, because if it's valuable, it means it's useful. And so it's not about self-promotion, it's about value promotion, right? If I use Apple as an example all the time, and I say that, every year, there are people who are ride or die Apple fans. They would never be Android. They will always use Apple everything. And Apple knows that. But every single year, between September 11th and September 13th, every single year, they show up online and they have a big event every single year. If they didn't have the event, people will probably still buy the products. But every single year, they take the time to say, we've done all of this work all through the year. We are going to not just celebrate the people who have done the work. We're going to tell people, even those who are loyal, even those who know that we can do the work, even those who know that we have been doing the work. We're going to be intentional about telling people like, hey, this is what we've done. This is why you've done, and this is why you should know about it. And this is why you should spend another $1,000 500 pounds of your hard-earned money, upgrading from the 13 to the 14, or the 14 to the 15, or the 15 to the 16. It's, even if it's like marginal moves, they're giving you a reason why you need to attribute value to the work. And so I find that such an instructive lesson for all of us in our career, is don't take it for granted. Even if people know what you're doing and what you're capable of, don't take that piece for granted. Like, make sure you are actively marketing yourself. The job is not done until you have done the work of marketing and telling people, this is what I've done, this is why I've done it, this is why you should know about it. Right. So yeah. So those are sort of my big three, like big lessons. And they're the lessons that I teach. They are the lessons that I live by now, pretty much. Every day I'm like, what strengths am I using today? What value am I using today? How am I marketing myself today? It's literally the question of the day for me, like all the time. So, and I would encourage people to kind of also adopt that, because I think it will change how you show up every day.
Such an important point. It's just something that I'm sure you've experienced many times, but people just don't do, or forget to do, or don't think about it. And it sounds like the change it could make is incredible. So super useful. And what would you say has been the biggest obstacle in your career that you have had to overcome?
I would say maybe my mind. I think ultimately, you can't go further than your mind can travel. And sometimes your mind can't fathom how great you can be. And that sometimes has always been the thing. So whether it is, and with mind comes a lot of things. It comes with fears. It comes with limiting beliefs. It comes with feelings of inadequacy, or things that all show up in a lack of confidence. It comes with certain behaviors that seem very normal. And I remember a podcast I was listening to. I listened to a lot of podcasts. And the guy said, the most insidious thing about excuses, or about I can't remember how he put it, but basically we're saying the most insidious things about when we give ourselves excuses, or when we have fears, is that they're actually rational. Like, they're not, a lot of times there's a very valid reason. It's not most of the time, it's not irrational fear, whereas the fear of spiders, or this kind of, weird, slightly irrational fears that come out of nowhere. No, they're actually, anyone would look at it and say, this is a valid reason why you should not do this, but you have to do it anyway, because that's how you grow. And that's, I listened to that and thought, yeah. It's the fears and the beliefs that you have, they're not coming from nowhere, and then they're really not irrational. And that's why they can be completely validated and can keep you in the same place. But you kind of need to understand that, yeah, these are valid, but if I need to move from here to the place I need to go to, I need to get over this, right? And so that, for me, I would say was probably one of the biggest obstacles in terms of putting myself out there actively, building new relationships. I would always think, sometimes I would go into a room and think, I might see somebody that I know, but something in my head would tell me they're probably not going to remember you. So don't put yourself in a position where where you say hello and they're going to give you this weird look. I'm like, so I would literally tell myself, they're not going to remember you. So just walk away from them. It's this really weird, but how do you build relationships with people? How do you shoot your shot if you're constantly thinking that you're not memorable? It's so wild. And so that's just an example, but there's been so many other things like that. The stories that you tell yourself in your mind that then, that dictates whether you feel as though, you they feel as though you can achieve what you want to achieve, or that you are even deserving of achieving it. Those are wild. I think limiting beliefs are probably one of the biggest things for me. So every single day it's about understanding, and it's not, I can't say it's gone, but I just feel like every single day it's about actively stopping to listen to the voices that are in my head, and and doubling down on the opposite. I was listening to Amy Porterfield the other day over the weekend, and she was saying, give equal time. So give equal time to positive thoughts as you do to negative thoughts. So whenever you hear a negative thought, stop for a minute and give equal time to the opposite. A lot of times we sit in the negative. We allow it to just fill us up. We allow it to dictate our moves. We allow it to dictate our actions. But she was basically saying, give equal time. And it's like, for every negative thought, I am going to listen to it, hear it, but I'm also going to dwell on the positive. I'm going to sit and actually assess and say, hey, no, what if it was the opposite? Let me also revel in the opposite action and, give equal time. And I think that's such valuable advice that I would also share here is, give equal time. And that was sort of my biggest obstacle, is I wasn't giving equal time to positives that as much as I did to negatives. And it drove my actions. So now it's not that negative thoughts have gone away, but I just try to give equal time to the positives as well. And I always ask that question, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? And it's not that bad. The worst that can happen is never the end of the world, right? So it's, as long as it's not going to take my life or hurt my family, then it's not bad. It's not actually the worst that can happen. It just is what it is. So yeah, you'll notice I give very long-winded answers. I'm very wordy.
But you know what? I think there'll be so many people nodding along at home like I was, because you can obviously see me, but I think there'll be so many people nodding along, and I do exactly the same. I'm forever saying, well, what's the worst that can happen? And it really helps you put things into perspective. So I think that's really useful. So thank you. And what would you say is your biggest achievement in your career so far?
Oh, someone asked me this the other day, in fact, she asked me about 3. And I don't exactly remember what I said, but they were definitely not material achievements or any of those things. I would say my biggest achievements are really around just showing up, really, when I could very well have just said, nah, I'm good. And so, it's probably more around my tenacity. And, despite a lot of obstacles, whether internal or external limitations, I have just, I keep showing up. And that is super encouraging to me. I keep showing up and I keep seeing that I'm different from who I was before, and I'm growing, and that's not growth by default. That's growth by choice, and growth by intentionality. So, so yes, if you were to ask me one, that's the one thing that every single day I'm like, nope, you showed up. You showed up and you keep showing up. And there was every reason why you shouldn't have shown up today, but you did. And there's been so many starts and stops in my career, even though it's kind of seemed on the outside, it seemed very smooth. But there's so many starts and stops in my career and moments when I could have just said, hey, I'm hanging up the towel. I can't do this anymore. This is not working for me. But I'm still here. I'm showing up. So that for me, I think is definitely by far, when I think about what I'm most proud of, it's that, I would say.
Amazing. I love that. And if you could give someone starting their career in finance one piece of advice, what would it be?
I want to sound like a broken record now. Capitalize on your strengths, contribute value, and communicate your results. I don't think I can say much more than that. Don't start. So there's that. But I think there's also the advice around, enjoy what you do, like have fun. Have fun with it. You are trying new things. Inertia is a big thing. The fear of not wanting to make a mistake, and so you end up doing nothing, is a real thing. So don't feel like you need to have it all figured out. Just do one thing. As I was talking earlier, you actually have 1,000 doors in front of you. Your job is to do the work to eliminate 999. But in order to eliminate 999, it means you need to try potentially 999. So you need to try new things, try different things. It may not feel great on paper, but take the job. Go to the new department, take the new project, try it out. What that gives you is important data about what you like and don't like. But without trying it out, without that intentional exploration, you would never know. It would always just be an idea. So right now, it feels as though you can't do sales. But if there's an opportunity to do sales, try it out. Prove the point. Prove it and say, oh, I can or cannot do it. No, it's either at the end of it, you say, actually, this is not as bad as I thought. Or you will say, I knew it. I don't do it. I'm not doing it. And that's important data, because now you have validated, either direction, that this is what I want to do and this is what I don't want to do. And then the next time an opportunity comes in that area, you know why you're saying no, because now it's clear. And so don't get into overthinking. Do the work, understand who you are, lean into that to help you make decisions. So make informed decisions, but don't feel like you need to have everything all figured out. You are not a tree. You can change your mind. And so doing something today doesn't mean you can't change your mind tomorrow. There's no one keeping you there. So don't feel as though you need to have it all figured out. Just take the first move, and you realize that growth really just happens in the wild, right? So just take the first move and you would grow. You would figure things out on your pathway.
Amazing. I love that. I love that door analogy and giving things a go and working out what does and doesn't work for you. I think it's so important. So we are coming to the end, but I would love to ask you for a book or podcast recommendation. And I'm assuming you probably have loads, so I'm excited for your recommendations.
Oh, wow. Books, I'm looking up, because this is I have my bookshelf here. The book that I read pretty much every single year is a book called How to Make Friends and Influence People. It's called How to Make Friends and Influence People. It's by a guy called Dale Carnegie. Pretty dated book, very quite old, but it is powerful. It tells you how people operate. Human connection and your network is the most valuable thing you can invest in your career. Your network would keep you accountable. Your network would give you advice. Your network would open up doors for you that you cannot access for yourself. But there is a key to unlocking and mobilizing your network and the people around you. More so, this is the book that talked about influencing before influencing became a thing. This book is so dated. It's easily, 40 years old, maybe. It's so dated. But it's the book that used the word influencing before the whole idea of being an influencer became a thing. And he's talking about not just influencing, it's about getting to know how people operate so that you can get them to do what you want them to do, but in a way that they also believe in what you want to do. Not in a manipulative way, but in a way that they buy into what you're trying to do. It's a book about generosity. It's a book about giving. It's a book about serving. It's a book about a lot of different things, but that is one book I pretty much don't miss reading every single year. It's always a valid reminder. So that's the book one out. That's what I would drop. Podcast wise, I live in podcast land. The one that I'm really enjoying now is The Diary of a CEO. Comes up a lot. It's just probably because I'm in that sort of business growth phase. So I'm spending a lot of time maybe doing that. But from a career perspective, I would probably say the podcasts that are done by there are two women who I think it's called the Squiggly Career Podcast or the Amazing If Podcast. I'm not sure. I think their company is called Amazing If. The podcast, I think, is called Squiggly Career. Beautiful, beautiful podcast. beautiful. It's two amazing women, Helene Tupper and Sarah Ellis. They're great. And it's just this idea, again, like sort of similar to what I was talking about, is you don't have to have it all figured out. Your career is much more of a squiggle than it is a straight line. And understanding that from the beginning is to know peace, really, just to know, like, you're going to be going around in squiggles. But what does it mean to squiggle? And what does it mean to squiggle effectively in your career? So there's a lot of wholesome content about trying new things, discovering your strengths, leaning in, dealing with setbacks, dealing with being laid off, negotiating your pay, adding value where you are, visibility, networking. There's so much. It's so, wow. It's wild. So I would definitely recommend those. I have both of the books that they've written. Hugely influential in my career. And so, yeah, those are the two that I would say. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mary, for being an absolutely amazing guest. And everybody needs to go and check out Mary's book right now. Like I said, link will be in the bio. So thank you, Mary. You have been incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a great conversation.
Thank you so much for listening to the Her Future Bright podcast. If you did enjoy it, please do subscribe, rate and review, and we will see you next week with another amazing guest.